What's happening, everybody? Ryan Thomas here, live on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Once again, bringing you another episode of my show. Thank you so much for tuning in to the TTSP each and every week. Whether I'm talking Buffalo Bills football, mixed martial arts, baseball, hockey, not a lot of baseball discussions to be had right now. We are really in the thick of things as far as football season goes. And this episode is a big episode for Bills fans to tune into. Those of you that are tuning on the visual side of things, I am rocking the Notre Dame Fighting Irish hat. Trevor Lawrence crushing my dreams, but the Fighting Irish did make the 14 playoff, which I was pretty happy about. So I have to represent. But from pretenders to contenders, the Buffalo Bills. Now we are inching towards an elusive status that has long eluded this Buffalo Bills franchise, and in particular, the Bills Mafia, the best fan base in the world, in the sports world, no doubt about it. The 2020 Buffalo Bills are an elite team. The 2020 Buffalo Bills are locked in as the second seed inside the AFC, and you have analysts, whether they're on ESPN, whether they're on Fox Sports, whether they are on CBS Sports, you name it, everyone is talking about the Buffalo Bills most likely being the best team to test the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC. They're the biggest threat to the Chiefs in the AFC. They're saying no to Tennessee, no to Cleveland, no to any of the other AFC teams that could potentially be playoff teams. And they're saying yes to the beloved Buffalo Bills of Western New York and beyond. So the Bills went from being pretenders to contenders. Why were they pretenders? Why do I categorize them prior to this season as pretenders? We didn't know what they were going to bring to the table. We didn't know how good Stephon Diggs would be in his first season as a Buffalo Bill. We didn't know what Josh Allen would be from year 2 to year 3. We just flat out didn't quite know or didn't quite understand how this season would pan out. And I got to be honest with you, you go back to any show that I did leading up to the season, I thought to myself, yeah, this team has the ability to be 10-6 AFC East champions. They win the AFC East. Their record currently is 12-3. They win the AFC East last week by going 11-3. So this team has defied my expectations, and this is a season, a 12-3 season, frankly, that nobody expected. Now, I didn't expect this 12-3 season for a wide variety of reasons. First off, you go back to last year, this was a very dynamic offense in the sense that John Brown and Cole Beasley were immediate impact players in year one, but you didn't know what was there's just something was missing. Whether it was a wide receiver one, whether it was more depth on our offensive line, something was missing on this Buffalo Bills roster. And Buffalo added to what was missing, acquiring Stephon Diggs via trade, signing Darrell Williams as a right tackle, who I think has been one of the more underrated additions that the Bills have added over the course of the last year. Darrell Williams has been fantastic all season long. I'm not hearing many people give him his due as far as what he has been able to bring to the table to this 2020 Buffalo Bills team. He is one of the better players that the Bills have had via free agency in quite some time. And you couple that in with Mitch Morse, who was brought in from Kansas City last season. You add in the fact that Cole Beasley has been one of the better slot receivers in the league since he joined the Buffalo Bills a couple years back now, 2 years ago, 2 off seasons ago. This is a very legitimate team. This is a team that is a force to be reckoned with, and this is a team that nobody saw coming but Bills fans. Bills fans believed that their Bills would be a better version of themselves eventually. We just didn't know whether it would be this year, whether it would be next year, but this season is a season that I didn't even expect. My best outlook on the season for the Buffalo Bills was that they would go 12-3, and or was that they wouldn't go 12-3, they would go 10-6 to finish the season. Now they're 12-3. So this wasn't even a season that I expected at One Bills Drive. And I have to start off by saying Brian Daboll did something. He accomplished something. He was a offensive coordinator that was criticized by myself and many others. I wasn't the only guy that was frustrated with Brian Daboll last season. There were a lot of others. Brian Daboll accomplished turning a wrong into a right. That wrong was not necessarily his fault, even in the sense that this offense couldn't be as dynamic as it is this season, last season, due to the fact that they didn't have a dynamic wide receiver in Stephon Diggs who can run every route, who can line up along any side of the field, whether in the slot, on the outside, you name it, he can run any route. He's one of the best route running receivers in the league. That added dimension to this offense has greatly helped Brian Daboll in terms of his play calling. It has greatly helped Josh Allen, adding in the fact that you bring in another power running back, a young power running back in Zach Moss. I don't think this run game has been tapped into quite yet, and I'm going to dive into that in depth at the end of the show. But Brian Daboll went from being an offensive coordinator that it was put up or shut up time, and Daboll put up. He made it happen. He made it happen from week one up until now, and I would say rightfully so. I'm happy to say this. He's the hottest head coaching candidate in the National Football League right now. Eric Bieniemy is right up there as well, the offensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs. Brian Daboll turning a wrong into a right. That wrong was a lack of dynamic play calling. And we saw it a little bit towards the end of the season last year, especially in that playoff game against Houston, but it was too few and far between, too little too late. And I think they realized heading into this season, we have to attack the opposition much, much quicker. We have to attack the opposition in a high-powered way. And Brian Daboll has been able to do that all season long. So credit to him and a credit to the Bills playmakers for fitting into his offense, and a credit to Daboll allowing them to really play within their game. So that is extremely important, and I think that has to be stated in this 2020 season. Brian Daboll has been getting a lot of love. I don't know what's going to happen really with Daboll. Will he leave? Will he stay? Do I think he should stay? Obviously, I want him to stay. I would hope he stays because I think he's finally been able to get the most out of this offense. And I say finally, it is his third season. First year rookie quarterback, hodgepodge offensive line, not many skill players at the skill positions to speak of. And heading into the second season, it gets a little bit better, but that third season, it gets exponentially better with the addition of Stephon Diggs. I truly believe that the addition of Stephon Diggs has greatly changed the entire dynamic of not just this offense, but this team. I don't know about you guys, but I'm watching these games, and I'm seeing Stephon Diggs really get in the faces of his teammates, and I love that. I love that. I really do. And I think that is what makes Bills Mafia really love him. So I'm getting as many members of Bills Mafia on this show as I can. And I love interacting with Bills Mafia. So thanks for tuning in. To anyone tuning in on the Bills Facebook pages, anyone tuning in on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, as well as Facebook and YouTube. This season has been such a great show for the show. This season has been a great show for the fans, and it's been great for anybody that is in the sports podcasting racket. I have greatly enjoyed it. I got so many big things planned for 2021 that I'm not going to unveil quite yet, but you guys will definitely come to appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to unveiling that in the near future. So stay tuned, stay alert, and stay ready for any updates on that. So hop on, ask me some questions, fire away some comments. the perceived disgruntled wide receiver, the perceived disgruntled wideout fits in here in Buffalo. And it goes to kind of what has been taking place in Buffalo as a whole the last few years. Buffalo, the city of Buffalo, has seen a resurgence. There has been plenty of new businesses added to this area, especially downtown Buffalo, but also cities like Williamsville, Amherst area. You see a lot of new businesses, a lot of new breweries. Breweries are really big here. And you see a little bit of a revival. You feel it in the city. You feel the results, COVID or not, pre or during COVID. I have felt the sense of a revival here in Western New York, and Western New Yorkers are proud of their city for the trials and tribulations that we have faced, whether we were on the upswing of things in the early 90s economically or on the downswing of things, just as everyone else was in the mid, to late 2000s, 2008 recession really hurt a small city like Buffalo. But Buffalo has been able to come back in terms of the city and in terms of their sports teams in the Buffalo Bills leading the way. It's now up to the Sabres to do that as well as their season starts. And obviously, I'll be covering the Sabres on this show quite often. But it's always a negative perception among the national media when they discuss Buffalo. Not always, but the majority of the time. And when Stephon Diggs was traded from the Minnesota Vikings to the Buffalo Bills, a lot of the biggest analysts in the sports, biggest meaning, Steve Levy and ESPN, Mike Greenberg, and those guys. There's always like, well, Buffalo's a small city. Buffalo's not really a big market. There's this stigma attached to Buffalo. It's a cold weather city. You got to play in the cold weather. It's snowing every day, which it couldn't be further from the truth. Buffalo's a great place to play. Thurman Thomas would tell you that. Jim Kelly would tell you that. Andre Reed would tell you that. Even guys that spent a short amount of time here, like Terrell Owens, would tell you that. Terrell Owens would tell you that as well. He said on many occasions that his one season as a member of the Buffalo Bills was one of his most memorable years of his career, just in terms of the interaction between him and the fans. There's simply no fan base like the Buffalo Bills fan base. We know that as fans. We understand that. But Stephon Diggs was looked at as a problem in Minnesota. Essentially, I don't want to say he demanded a trade, but it was a mutual agreement that if Stephon did demand a trade, Minnesota would find a trade partner for him, and that's exactly what happened. Minnesota knew that he didn't want to be there. They knew that their offense wasn't a fit for him. Diggs knew that. He didn't want to be there and that his career was taking a hit as a member of the Minnesota Vikings statistically, so why carry on? And he asked to be traded. They trade him to the Buffalo Bills, who were interested in him the season prior, and the rest is history. Stephon Diggs has had the greatest single season that any Buffalo Bills wide receiver has ever had in his first season as a member of the Buffalo Bills. Really let that sink in. Statistically, the greatest season that any Buffalo Bills wide receiver has ever had, including Hall of Famer Andre Reed. And it's his first season here. Remarkable stuff. So Stephon Diggs has done something. Pardon me. Stephon Diggs has done something for this franchise that I think you can't put a measurement on it. How valuable Stephon Diggs has been for the future of this team, because now the Stephon Diggs has fit in here in Buffalo, coming from another organization. It will send a message to the rest of the National Football League that, what does the league think of Buffalo? Do they see Buffalo as a city that embraces their players? Yes. Do they see Buffalo as a city that is getting better and better each and every year? Yes. And do they see the Buffalo Bills as a team that is on the rise? 100%. So I think the Buffalo Bills coming off of this season are going to have a rare ability to attract free agents in a way that they haven't in a long, long time. And you have the quarterback, you have Stephon Diggs. Even on the defensive side of the ball, you have a young secondary that is going to be together for a long time. Trey White, one of the best corners in the league. Albeit, I will say Levi Wallace has been give or take, but I think the Bills brass really likes him. Teron Johnson has stepped up in previous weeks, but as far as how long Poyer and Hyde will be here, that remains to be seen. I'm not saying they're going to be gone after this year at all, but sooner rather than later, I think for those two guys, eventually they won't be on this team in the near future, maybe 2-3 years from now. So, there are pieces to this team. Tremaine Edmonds, a young Pro Bowl linebacker in this league, for the struggles that Edmonds had this season in spots. He has played his best football these last few weeks of the season. He's looked fantastic. I know that there's been whiff tackles still and overrunning his assignment and things of that nature, but he's by no means a finished product, and that's what makes it so exciting. Edmonds is not a finished product, and Josh Allen is not a finished product either. I thought Josh Allen would be great. I didn't think he would possibly lead the Buffalo Bills to a Super Bowl championship in his third National Football League season. That is not an outlandish thought that the Buffalo Bills could possibly win the Super Bowl this year. It is a realistic thought, as they are the second seed in the AFC. If they win the first playoff game, which is a big if, it's a big hump that they have to get over. We have to say to ourselves, if they can do that, we can make something happen. And I think that they can do that. I think that they should do that. I don't see any reason why the Buffalo Bills do not win the first round of the wild card round of the playoffs. No matter who they're playing, they should definitely pull it off. But I think a few things have to change. What exactly has to change heading into the playoffs? Where am I most worried about the Buffalo Bills? What has got me worried about this team? Very few things have me worried about this team, but to play devil's advocate, to let the people know what I think of this team in terms of where I'm worried about their offense in this sense. I'm happy that the Buffalo Bills have been able to resemble the greatest show on turf. Kurt Warner dropping back, throwing it to Torrey Holt or Isaac Bruce. Josh Allen dropping back, throwing it to Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, or Gabe Davis. I'm not upset about the fact that this Bills passing offense has been red hot since they played the Kansas City Chiefs in the middle of the season. But I will say, for as great as it is that the Bills can pass the football, when you are in the playoffs and you're playing teams that can run the football, wear down your defense, limit your offense the opportunity to get out on the field and make long drives, just playing clock management and just common sense football 101. If Buffalo can't run the football in these playoff games, let's just say hypothetically Buffalo has a 27-17 lead going into the fourth quarter. If they can't run the ball and close out that game, it makes it much, much easier for them to lose that game. The first game that comes to mind is last season's playoff game against the Houston Texans. They had a 16-0 lead. They squandered that lead because they couldn't necessarily run the football. They didn't really show a willingness to establish the run at that point with a 16-0 lead. Had they done that, had they had the willingness to run the football, I think we would have won that game. And that was my biggest criticism of Brian Daboll heading into the offseason, is that we have to chew on this for the next 5-6 months. It could have been avoided, and it has to be avoided this time around. Everything that the Bills have accomplished these last 5-6 weeks is for nothing if they go to the playoffs and lose in the first round. The AFC's title means nothing if the Bills go one and done in the playoffs. So what has to change? I want to see Zach Moss and Devin Singletary get more of a workload within this offense. However it has to be done. That does not necessarily mean that Zach Moss has to bang him in between the tackles. Doesn't mean that Devin Singletary obviously has to bang him in between the tackles. Use these guys to their strengths. Moss's strength is in between the tackles, and Singletary's strength, I believe, is out in space. I want to see Devin Singletary used as a Marshall Faulk type back in this offense. I think he could greatly help this offense be even better if he were to get the ball out of the backfield via the passing game. So that, to me, has to change. I think the world of Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. I think both of these guys have untapped potential and are two players that really want the ball in their hands. So why not give it to them more in these playoff games, in these very important go big or go home games? And I think that that's how the Bills win in the playoffs. How do they win? They provide a balanced offensive attack. Now, I know that this Bills offense is a passing offense, and this is a passing league. I get that just as much as anyone. I know that just as much as anybody. But against some of these teams, it's going to be very so that's how I see it. And that's what I have been thinking leading into the playoffs. And frankly, Ryan Thomas does not want the Bills to start their starters next week. Coming off of that dominant win over the New England Patriots, knowing what this team is capable of with all their ones in, I want the ones out against the meaningless Miami Dolphins. And if we lose, we lose. We go 12-4. Wow, that's a terrible record. If we win, we win. We go 13-3. Let's see what these backups can do. And I think that this season the Bills have gone from pretenders to legitimate AFC championship caliber contenders. I'm Ryan Thomas. It was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for Bills Mafia for tuning in. Thank you so much to Bills Mafia, I should say, for tuning in. I greatly appreciate the support. Want to let you guys know that you can subscribe and like the Thomas Take Sports Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, as well as Facebook, and subscribe on YouTube as well. Greatly appreciate it. A lot of awesome guests coming on the show in the coming weeks, so stay tuned for more episodes of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Take care, everybody.